welcome back to my channel. It's hellonanaotu. Today's video we're going to talk about marriage, the challenges of marriage, cultural perspectives, and how that impacted marriage for me, like actually going to therapy and figuring out how I could be better when it comes to being a wife. And if you're interested, continue watching. Other than me and my husband are having a conversation about just certain things that he was like wanting me to work on, and this like kind of inspired the conversation to do this video. By the way, I'm using the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. Nobody ever talks about how you can be the actual problem in your marriage. I feel like a lot of times we do project a lot on the men, and that's not to say that the men don't got issues. They got their own issues, but you can also be the problem, you know. And I'm realizing that there's things that I even need to work on when it comes to like my marriage. And like, if I forget to share the products, everything will be linked close. I know that I have flaws. I know that there are things that I need to work on in my relationship, and sometimes it's so much more easier to like project on my husband and the things that I want to see him do instead of really looking inward. I remember there was like a sermon that I listened to. It was by Matt Chandler, and he was talking about how like for the first 5 years of the relationship, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt Chandler, if I'm not even gonna watch this video, it's 5 years of his marriage, I believe, he and his wife just couldn't stand each other. They couldn't stand each other. They thought that each other was the problem. They projected a lot on each other. And a lot of the things that they felt like would solve their marital problems was that if their partner fixed themselves. And I feel like sometimes I fall into that trap, you know. I fall into that like, well, if my husband does this and this and this and this and this, this will make things better for me and make me more comfortable. Also, side note, I'm going for a very everyday look, and I don't want to do the most. This is the look that I'll go for. Wearing the Estee Lauder double wear in mocha, but I really feel like God is even showing me a lot about myself and like what I need to like work on. It's been super like challenging for me, to be honest. I didn't have a healthy blueprint growing up of what marriage should look like. In my marriage, it's been us actually both figuring it out, and us both learning, and us really wanting to do better than our parents did. No shade to my parents. Like, I love my parents deeply. They aren't the template that I look to. I never really saw healthy conflict growing up. This is the Sephora best skin ever. The Ghanaian culture, I feel like, tends to really view marriage in such a way that it's like they don't really talk about like the trauma, and they don't talk about like how you can work on yourself in marriage. A lot of the advice during like weddings is like, cook for your husband, make sure you bust it wide open, but at the same time they don't really address like the heart issues. I just wish that the advice at these weddings would be so much more deeper, and I just think that it's just like very problematic because it sets up like very unrealistic like expectations for us as a generation, us as a people, to enter marriage thinking that marriage actually solves problems, when marriage doesn't actually solve problems. It actually heightens the things that you're dealing with, especially the Ghanaian culture, because I'm Ghanaian, so I'm going to talk about this. It's a hush culture. It's like, don't share your business, don't tell anybody anything, because you don't want to come off like your marriage is failing, or you don't want to come off like you're struggling in your marriage, like this is gonna make our family look bad. And like, that is so problematic. I think that there's a difference between like being honest and being transparent. Like, you can still be honest with where you're at. You don't have to completely pour out all your woes, but I just wish that there was more dialogue when it came to like struggles in relationships, more realistic expectations when it comes to like wanting to be married, getting married, what that looks like, instead of being so hush hush. Like, we live in a culture where if we're like struggling with like infertility, we don't want to share it because we're afraid that people are going to think that we're bringing shame to the family. And it's like, no, if you actually share, there's a possibility that somebody who's dealing with the same thing can actually relate to you. But if you like keep it inside and just don't share, I feel like we're actually doing more of a disservice than keeping things inside, than not really sharing like what we're actually going through. And I just feel like even in this conversation, I want to create that space where people know that, you know, my marriage is not perfect. It has been very beautiful moments, absolutely, but there have been moments in my marriage where we didn't even think we were gonna make it. we were really struggling for the first couple of years because there was just so much stuff that came on top of the surface. I feel like I wished that I knew that and I prepared myself better, because we tend to think that marriage will solve all our problems, like marriage will make things better for us, like, you know, and sometimes that's not always true. Like, and I think that the thing is, God created marriage, right? He values it, and it's possible. It's not impossible, but we have to be able to put the things that we actually deal with, like the traumas that we're actually facing, at the forefront before we say, just get married. How do you speak to your children at home? Because that is going to impact how your daughter speaks to her husband. How do you speak to your husband at home? How do you treat your husband? Like, do you respect him? Do you not respect him? Like, all of these things are actually going to seep in to that relationship as a mother that you're endorsing so much. The thing is, there's grace, and I want to give grace to our parents, but they are setting us up to face challenges that are unrealistic, that can actually really be a hindrance to the marriage if not fully addressed. Like, even for me, like, I feel like my trauma came out so much, like, and it still does in moments, because there's some things that I don't even realize are triggers for me, that maybe my husband may say that will trigger me, will open up a door to something that I'm like, where is this coming from? But the reality is, it's always been there. It's always been there. It's always been a thing, you know, it's always been something that I've been dealing with. Marriage will bring out your trauma. Marriage will highlight the problems that you've experienced in your past. Marriage will highlight the trauma that you've experienced in your previous relationships. You know, that is what's gonna come out more, and it's really a lot of work. Let's be real though, like, why do they always say we have to cook? Cooking doesn't mean that you're not gonna get a divorce. Our mothers been cooking for their husbands and they're unhappy. Okay, because that doesn't solidify a solid relationship. That doesn't actually determine how successful your relationship is. And I just hate that narrative where it's like, you are a successful wife if you are a homemaker. There are women who aren't homemakers, aren't the ones that cook in the house, and their marriages are successful. And so it's so problematic to like depict this like aspect of like, the only way that you can be successful in your marriage is if you're a homemaker. It's always this emphasis on women, when it's like, what about the man? What about your son? What about his issues? What about his trauma? Both of us are coming into this relationship with so much stuff that we didn't even realize, and now we have to figure it out. So annoying. And so I'm realizing that even though there's things that I have to work on about myself, a lot of it is because I didn't really have a healthy blueprint of how to navigate relationship and what that even looked like. I will say that I'm still figuring it out. I'm still navigating. Our marriage has grown so much, which I'm so grateful to God about, but it wasn't always like that. You know, we just had stuff about us that we just both need to work on, and we needed proper tools to like navigate that. That brings into like my next like point or like thoughts is therapy. Our culture just doesn't promote therapy. The only therapy we promote is premarital counseling. Let's talk about that. And half of these premarital counselings don't even set us up for like success in our marriage. It's so general, and it's like, okay, we need more. Like, we need more, you know. Therapy just changed our relationship. It changed our relationship. It helped us so much. We're still using tools till this day. Because of therapy, and I'm just so grateful, and I will always be an advocate for therapy individually and as a couple because it's life-changing. Like, therapy is a life-changing. I never ever heard about therapy ever growing up. The only therapy that I feel like my parents ever did was go to like the elders and tell them about their problems, and then the elders would just be like, oh, okay, da da da. And I think that yes, some of the African proverbs are helpful, but I really believe you need a professional, somebody who's actually like can walk through like your own stuff, help you really walk through like the things that you need to work on. And a lot of the issues our parents didn't really change or really feel like it was issues, and so what ended up happening was the same things. Our parents are in the same cycle over and over again, And I think that a lot of them just check out. I didn't realize that there is work to be done, you know, and it's not a bad thing for there to be work to be done, but it's just the reality that a lot of us don't even realize the work that needs to be done until we're actually in it or in a relationship. And our parents never showed us that. I feel like a lot of them just hide under this mask of trying to be this perfect wife or trying to be this wife that is, you know, has it all together, but they're dying inside. And very rarely do you see women, even in our culture, sharing their own struggles, unless it's like with a close friend. And that doesn't mean that go out and put your whole business out there, but it's like, man, we need to promote therapy more. There's not a lot of things that we can figure out by ourselves. We need the accountability, we need the help, we need to really address the issues and the abuse and all the extra stuff that even our own parents have dealt with as children, growing up, that they don't even realize or have suppressed because they don't want to deal with it, you know. And we will see that suppression come out in so many different ways, and we sometimes even joke about it or laugh about it because we're like, oh, this person needs help, but in reality they're really suffering and they're not being open about their suffering. And so what ends up happening is it just brings more shame and more embarrassment, because we're so big on shame that we all look like we're judging people, but in reality we all struggling, we all have our issues. And like, I'm realizing even for like our parents, because they don't even realize how some things can be triggers for them in their past, they literally will project those triggers onto their children. You're feeling like, why are you struggling in this situation? And so yeah, therapy really helped our marriage a lot. It really showed me so many things about myself, so many things that I didn't realize was impacting me. Like as a child, growing up, my childhood experiences, previous partners, and we needed to work together and figure something out. Because I'm such a big believer in marriage, because I know God created marriage, I never buy into anything that the society tells us, like, oh, marriage doesn't work, it's not successful. No, marriage will work. Marriage will work. And I'm a testament to that. If two people are willing to put in the work every single day to show up for their partner, marriage will work when you keep God first. Marriage will work when you are vulnerable with your stuff and you bring before God and you ask God to step in to those challenging mirrored moments of yourself and ask God to help you be better. That's when marriage will start to work. I forgot to contour, so I'm gonna contour my nose. I actually forgot to contour my nose. I was just doing my eyebrows right now, and I was like, oh, I forgot to contour. A lot of our parents too don't think they have issues, but then when they're really upset, they're like, do you know my problems? It's like, pick one. Do you have problems or you don't have problems? Going back to what Matt Chandler had said. Is it Matt Chandler? I was thinking Chandler Moore. That's what it was. Matt Chandler, in his sermon, he was talking about when their relationship started to change is when God started to show them that they need to work on themselves before they point their finger at their partner. And I remember one time, I was cutting up in the morning with my husband. I was telling him all the things I want him to work on, all the things that I feel like he needs to improve, and this and this and that. I remember the sermon that was preached that day was not focusing on like what your neighbor is doing instead of like judging and criticizing, and how like this is really convicting. Like, what are some things that I need to work on my own self? That doesn't mean that you can't share. That's the thing, as being a Ghanaian, our parents don't share much with their husbands, and if they do share, they wait till like it's like last minute to share. And so something that I had to really learn is like knowing like the context of when to share. In our marriage, we do this like a weekly check-in, or we'll do like intentional date nights. In our weekly check-in, this is actually something that our therapist gave to us, a set of check-in questions. The rules of the check-in questions is to not be accusatory, essentially. Just sharing like what you want your partner to do. So one of the questions would be like, share something that, you know, I did that you didn't like this week? The rule is it can't be an argument. So it has to be something that you like share, but at the same time, you're not coming from a place of offense. It's meant to just bring awareness of what your partner may have done in that week that may have like irritated you, and letting them know like, this is what I need you to work on. Something that she also taught us was like, in response to like your partner sharing like something that they feel like you need to work on, you would be like, thanks for sharing that with me. So like using certain language to like help highlight like you actually have received the thing. And I feel like it's been so helpful in our marriage. It's really helped us like really navigate conflict in such a beautiful way, where it's like, I still feel safe with you, you know. And I noticed that when we don't do our check-ins, oh, the tone in this house, it's on and popping. What I mean is like, we're just more irritated with each other, we're more frustrated with each other. Side note, I love this Morphe palette, the 8D face palette. It has like a contour, it has a blush. It's like, I love it. I love this palette so much. It's possible if you guys are both willing to do the work. The scripture that makes me think about a lot is in Amos 3:3. It's like, how could two walk together unless they agree? And that's literally the foundation of having a successful marriage. Like, with God, for sure. But like, how can you guys say you guys are gonna do this if you guys are not on the same page? Being on the same page requires work. Marriage is work. Even if your husband is like the most amazing man, because I will say my husband's pretty amazing, but he still has his stuff. Using the famous chestnut lip liner. To those who are designed to get married or want to get married, just to kind of have like real expectations. Marriage it's not a Disney movie. It's not a Disney movie. It's actually very important that we understand that, because sometimes we have these fairy tales, and social media does not help with these fairy tales. But marriage is not a Disney movie. You know, like, even if you find your Prince Charming, your Prince Charming gotta do the work. Me sharing this does not mean that I am perfect at it. This doesn't even mean that I'm there I'm fully there yet. You know, I want to be very transparent about that. Like, has there been growth? Yes, but I'm still human and I still have my moments. And so I don't ever want to come off like I have all the answers, because I don't. And the reality is, what may work for me may not even work for you, right? But it's just, I'm just trying to help serve as a tool. You know, these are things that I've learned that have been super helpful for me in my marriage that I want to share. Oh, I love this lip gloss. This is Morphe, and it's called Cruisin. I love this color. Like, do y'all see? Period. So going in with the palette, again, everything will be linked in the description. This is the Vanessa Jima palette, and I'm gonna go into the Brown Skin Girl. I'm just gonna put it on my eyelids. Marriage is challenging. It has its challenges, and it doesn't mean that it's not working. You know, mine is like, if you're being abused and stuff, then that's another conversation for another day. But if it's just like little things that can be worked on, or little things that maybe are like triggered by traumatic experiences, then I would suggest like even trying out therapy, you know, and like talking to somebody who's more professional, who will see things very objectively. Because I think sometimes even when you go to your parents or family, they're gonna be biased. They're gonna be biased. They know you, they love you, they want the best for you, so they're gonna be super biased. Even your friends may be a little bit biased, right? So just really trying to talk to somebody about it that it has maybe more of a professional experience to kind of help navigate those things with you is super helpful. I'm just trying to see. The next thing I would say too is that it's okay for your partner to not always understand or see your perspective. You guys are two individuals from two different backgrounds, two different life experiences, and you guys are coming into a union, living under the same roof, and you just are not gonna see the things the same, you know? And I think that just requires work and compromise, you know, because you could necessarily be right. At the end of the day, y'all don't have the same experiences. It's just so important to like understand that, you know? Another thing too that I feel like has really helped me too is marriage takes humility, but also believing the best about your partner. If you're holding resentment, you're holding unforgiveness, and those moments will come, but you got to believe the best about your partner. You got to believe that the person that you're with loves you and has your best interest at heart. I don't know why I feel like adding some like shimmer to my eyes. I'm gonna do that. Why not? And isn't here to like spite you or do mean things, especially if they're not that type of person, you know? Because we all have our moments. We all have our moments about us that we don't always show up the most loving way. I want to believe that your husband has pure intentions, your partner has pure intentions about you, and if you're automatically always assuming the worst, then that's what's going to literally funnel into your relationship. I just want to also like make it clear that everything requires balance. We shouldn't let social media influence us so much that we project what we see on social media onto our partners, but we also shouldn't assume that what we see on social media is always fake, because there are people who actually have really great marriages and are actually happy. I've learned so much about myself through marriage. God has used it so much to make me a better person, and it's possible. Moments in my marriage have really just highlighted so many things that I know that I am still a work in progress. We don't even realize how important that the foundation has to be solid, so that even when you decide to bring kids in the picture, or when kids in the picture, y'all are not so broken that your kids are so impacted by those things, you know? And there's so many things that I think about a lot that I'm like, yeah, my parents could have done this better. But obviously they didn't have those tools, and I don't hold them to those standards, because I know that they're just figuring it out. They did what they did with what they had, you know? But we live in a generation now where there's so many tools and so much information there that it's not an excuse. I want to leave you guys with something that I've been like meditating on, and I think that it ties in beautifully in Ephesians 4:2, and it is, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. And we know that love is just one of the foundations of marriage. And when you bear someone in love, you hold them up with love. You hold them, you cherish them. You know, there's a proper saying in our culture, it's like, when you hold the person that you love like an egg, so that you don't drop them. It's actually one of the advice that I think you guys can take in our marital advice sessions when we're doing our traditional wedding. I've been getting back into MAC, the Fix Me. This is the matte one, because I feel like my face can get super oily sometimes, and I've been just loving how this like looks on my face after I'm done. It's just like, ooh, it just brings everything together. Hold people the people that you love like an egg. Bear them in love, because love will expose, love will challenge, love heals, and love makes you better. Like always, don't forget to shine your light while honoring the process, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.